Hi everyone, Happy New Year! We are officially in 2020 now. I hope you guys liked my kind of bulk uploading of videos right on New Year's Day. Got some lovely comments on those, so thank you all very much. What have I been up to? I've been back at work for a couple of days. That was pretty hard to do, obviously get back into the old routine, and I have bought a brand new laptop, so this will be the last video I'll be recording on my current laptop. I've only had the one laptop since I started this channel, so a completely new new camera I'll be using, everything, so but my laptop isn't, they had to order it, so it won't arrive until tomorrow. So I'm going to do some tests on the camera to see what it's like and everything in this room and all that lot. So my my kind of videos from the next review may look slightly different. I don't know, because I don't know what the camera quality is like, but we'll just have to see how it goes. But I've always got this laptop as a backup in case anything goes wrong, so so yeah, we'll see how it goes. But anyway, enough about that. I'm here to talk about the book I have been reading for what is today, the 5th, so the past 4 days, because I finished it last night, and that is Shirley Jackson's We Have Always Lived in the Castle. This is the first book of Shirley Jackson's that I have read, and it was actually the last book that she wrote before she passed away in the mid-60s. She wrote this 2 years before she passed away. And so all I knew, other than obviously having picked up this book and bought it because I thought it sounded quite interesting, she also is the author of The House on Haunted Hill, which was made into a Netflix series and was this massive hit last year. So, but that's it. That's all. I really didn't know anything much else about her. I've done a little bit of research after finishing this book to talk about certain aspects of this in this review, but yeah, going into this I had absolutely no clue whatsoever. And overall, I'm really quite taken aback by this, because at first I was reading it, I was just thinking, okay, this is odd, this is interesting. But then when I got to the end of it, I kept on thinking back, and I'm going, oh, that is so clever what she did there. Oh gosh, remember how she did that? Oh, I just realised that she's actually putting little tidbits in there which I completely didn't take in, things like that. The more I think about it, having reached the end of the book, the more I marvel at her structuring and such. So let's give you an overall of the plot. So it's set in a small town in America in sort of the late kind of the 20s, 30s kind of time, but we don't have a distinct date, as it were. We don't know exactly when it is, we don't know exactly where it is, but we know it's in small town kind of American, so you can understand what I kind of mean, that where there's only probably about 1,000 people in the area, and everybody knows everybody, and it's way away from any place near, so it's kind of you're cut off in a way. And there are this couple of sisters called Constance and Mary Catherine, or Mary Cat as she goes by, who live in this house. And Constance never leaves the house. She hasn't left the house in 6 years. Mary Cat only comes out once a week to do the shopping. It's always on a Tuesday. And whenever she leaves, she always gets heckled. She gets yelled at. The people in shops don't really want to speak with her, let her buy stuff, but they understand that because they're completely cut off, it's the only place that she can buy stuff. But still, she gets a lot of grief thrown at her, lots of stuff thrown at her. And when she goes back to the house, she locks the gate, padlocks it. They completely cut themselves off from the world. They also have an uncle called Julian who lives with them, who is in a wheelchair. He's got various things, various issues, should I say, the knock-on effect from something which happened 6 years previously. Which is what the townsfolk are angry at Mary about, and her sister Constance, and that's why they shut themselves away in this house, which is the castle as referred to in the title, and they live this completely cut off life, but they like it. They really do. They look after their uncle. They do kind of what they want to do, but yes, they're completely isolated. And then one day they get notice that their cousin Charles is coming to see them, and Mary Cat instantly is very hostile about the whole situation, and Charles comes to the house, and Constance gets along with him very well, but Mary Cat has issues with him being there, and it's kind of this whole thing of our world, this house, even though it's a kind of messed up situation, why we're stuck in this house. This is our world. This is wonderful, and now something is entering it, and the impact that then has on this house, on these two sisters, and the events of what had happened 6 years previously gets revealed to the reader. And so yeah, so that's the overall gist of what the book is about. And yeah, at first I was a bit like, okay, this is odd. It's completely written from Mary Cat's point of view, and I just want to read you the first paragraph, just so you can get a gist of what kind of you're kind of going into with this world. This little introduction. My name is Mary Catherine Blackwood. I am 18 years old, and I live with my sister Constance. I've often thought that with any luck at all, I could have been born a werewolf, because the two middle fingers on both my hands are the same length. But I've had to be content with what I had. I dislike washing myself, and dogs, and noise. I like my sister Constance, and Richard Plantagenet, and Amentina felides, the death-cut mushroom. Everyone else in my family is dead. So you can imagine the tone going into it is like, okay, that's interesting. Now, one thing to also say, I find it very, very interesting that she's written this book entirely from Mary Cat's point of view, because Mary Cat, to the outside world, and you really witness this with her going to the shops and everything, which is what the first kind of chapter covers, the outside world sees her as this strange girl. She doesn't like to brush her hair. She wears awkward plain clothes that just haven't really been washed. She's kind of dirty and greasy, and she doesn't like talking to people, but inside her mind she is sharp, like dead on. She understands people in ways that they don't realize. She can pick up on things other people can't, and to have it therefore told entirely from her perspective, being inside of her mind when they're doing horrible things to her, it's really interesting, very psychological, this story. And as I was saying at the beginning, how I didn't look into Shirley Jackson's life until after I finished the book, I discovered that in the later years of her life, she suffered from various problems with her health, but in the later few years of her life, she was agoraphobic, and you can feel it. It almost feels like the house is safe. As you read along, you're like, oh, okay, this is weird, because you're seeing this situation as one of those other townsfolk, looking at this house, and then all of a sudden you're kind of creeping into the house, and then the house feels awkward at first, but then it feels safe. It feels like this is where you're meant to be, and with this invasion of a new person, things start breaking down and relationships start shifting. And I finished it thinking, oh my God. And thus I was thinking back, because of revelations of what had happened 6 years previously and everything, the way she's referred to the little things throughout the book that once you put them all together as a whole, you're like, oh my God, like food is a big running thing. Pretty much, I think, yeah, pretty much most scenes have got food referred into it. And then when you realise why at the end, when you get to the end, you're like, oh my God. And the fact that with the ending about what happened, it's said very bluntly, it's completely out the blue. I was like, oh my God. It really went from being a book where I was thinking, I'm not sure how I feel about this. This is so awkward. It's odd. And by the end of it, I am going, oh, bravo. The structuring in this book it's great. It's absolutely great. And I want to read you a bit to explain kind of how Merricat kind of sees the world and everything. It's a couple pages, so it was a bit of a longer one than I usually do, but just to get you to understand kind of the tone of when someone enters the house. So this is on page 71 of like a 150 page book, so it's quite way in, but it's not a long story at all, and I really love the length of it. But yeah, so this is the point. Charles has arrived at the house, and they're having their first meal together. And Merricat doesn't like that he's kind of just come in and he's kind of treating the house like his own. He's sat in her and Constance's father's chair, and she really doesn't like that because that's father's chair. Father only sits in that chair. And so, yeah, somebody then just waltzing in and sitting on the chair, it's a big deal for her. And it's all in her head. So this is them having dinner. He sat across from me at dinner in our father's chair with his big white face blotting out the silver on the sideboard behind him. He watched while Constance cut up Uncle Julian's chicken and put it correctly on his plate, and he watched when Uncle Julian took the first bite and turned it over and over in his mouth. Here's a biscuit, Uncle Julian, Constance said. Eat the soft inside. Constance had forgotten and put dressing on my salad, but I would not have eaten anyway with that big white face watching. Jonas, I forgot to mention they've got a cat called Jonas, so Jonas is in the scene. Jonas, who was not allowed chicken, sat on the floor beside my chair. Does he always eat with you? Charles asked once, nodding his head at Uncle Julian. When he's well enough, Constance said. I wonder how you stand it, Charles said. I tell you, John, Uncle Julian said suddenly to Charles, investments are not what they were when Father made his money. He was a shrewd man, but he never understood that times change. Who's he talking to? Charles asked Constance. He thinks that you are his brother, John. Charles looked at Uncle Julian for a long moment, then shook his head and returned to his chicken. That was my dad's... get my words right. That was my dead wife's chair on the left, young man, Uncle Julian said. I well recall the last time she sat there. None of that, Charles said, and shook his finger at Uncle Julian. He had been holding his chicken in his hand to eat it, and his fingers sparkled with grease. We're not going to talk about it any more, Uncle. Constance was pleased with me, because I had come to the table, and when I looked at her, she smiled at me. She knew that I disliked eating when anyone was watching me, and she would save my place and bring it to me later in the kitchen. She did not remember, I saw, that she had put dressing on my salad. Notice this morning, Charles said, taking up the platter of chicken and looking into it carefully, that there was a broken step out back. How about I fix it for you one of these days? I might as well earn my keep. Oh, it would be very kind of you, Constance said. That step has been a nuisance for a long time. And I want to run into the village and get some pipe tobacco, so I can pick up anything that you need there. But I go to the village on Tuesdays, I said, startled. You do? He looked at me across the table, big white face turned directly at me. I was quiet. I remembered that walking to the village was the first step on Charles's way home. Merricat, dear, I think that if Charles doesn't mind it, it might be a good idea. I never feel quite comfortable when you are away in the village, Constance laughed. I'll get you a list, Charles, and the money, and you shall be the grocery boy. You keep your money in the house. Of course. Well, it doesn't sound very wise. It's in father's safe. Even so, I assure you, sir, Uncle Julian said, I made a point of examining the books thoroughly before committing myself. I cannot have been deceived. So I'm taking little cousin Mary's job away from her, Charles said, looking at me again. You'll have to find something else for her to do, Connie. I had made sure of what to say to him before I came to the table. The Amantina felidis, I said to him, holds 3 different poisons. There is amantine, which works slowly and is potent. There is philidine, which acts at once. And there is phthalin, which dissolves red corpuscles, though it is the least potent. The first symptom does not appear until 7 to 12 hours after eating, in some cases not before 24 or even 40 hours. The symptoms begin with violent stomach pains, cold sweat, vomiting. Listen, Charles said. He put down his chicken. You stop that, he said. Constance was laughing. Oh, merry cat, she said, laughing through her words. You are silly. I taught her, she told Charles. There are mushrooms by the creek and in the fields, and I made her learn the deadly ones. Oh, merry cat. Death occurs between 5 to 10 days after eating, I said. I don't think that's very funny, Charles said. Silly merry cat, Constance said. So as you can see, it feels very odd. Like all of a sudden, it kind of felt like with those words talking about the mushrooms and everything. It's almost like Mary Cat is like using each word as like a knife, like to stab him, to get him out of her life. She's so frustrated that he's calling Constance Connie. She's so frustrated that Constance has slipped up and put dressing on her salad and such when she never has. And she's frustrated that suddenly her job of going into the village has been taken from her. Her life is completely falling apart in this one dinner scene, and the only way that she can retaliate is with facts about poisonous mushrooms. As I said, as I went through this, I was like, oh my God, this is so weird. And when I got to the end, I'm thinking, this is actually really amazing. It because of the, as I said, because it was quite an odd read, quite funny and everything, in what was being said or thrown at you. It meant that the first part of the book was quite difficult, but once I got into the flow of, right, we're in the house now and everything, and I understand their day-to-day routines and all that lot, it then suddenly started to flow. And then really when Charles arrived, like with that dinner scene, it really took off for me from there. And yeah, I got to the end of it and I was just like, wow, that is a real powerhouse of a piece of writing. Shirley Jackson structured it wonderfully. I'd really quite like to read some of her other works as well. And yeah, would I read it again? I think I probably would. I probably want to read some other ones of her work, because there is a piece at the back, an afterword by Joyce Carol Oates. That's it, and she talks about how the isolation techniques that Shirley uses in this, and how she refers to a load of other parts of her work and other techniques, other aspects of kind of voyeurism, all that kind of thing, invasions of privacy and all that lot. All of these other books of hers where she's done that similar theme, and it kind of feels like this with her final book, she sort of went, right, I've got a theme there, I'm going to bring them all together now. And yeah, it was very interesting to read what Joyce thought about this book in the afterword. I think I'd like to read it again once I've read some other Shirley Jackson's works, to be able to give a proper in-depth, as it were, thought over the catalogue of Shirley Jackson's writing. Yeah. But would I recommend it? Yes. Expect some weird and wonderful stuff to come your way. But it's very interesting to the psychological side of getting inside a mind of someone who is so sharp and so on point, but from the outside world, you really wouldn't think she was. Really wonderfully constructed, very eerie, very dark, very mysterious. I quite like to read House on Haunted Hill, just to, because I know that obviously that's a ghost story and everything as was done in Netflix and that. I'd like to read what she did kind of from the supernatural side. There is a sort of, in a way, supernatural connection with this book, but not quite like ghosts and all that long. But I'd like to read more of her doing that kind of writing. Now, there was a film that was released of this, I think it's 2 years ago now, but the trailer actually only got released as an official trailer thing because I saw it on YouTube. I remember when it came on YouTube about 8 or 9 months ago, and which it was after I bought the book, and I thought it would look quite interesting. I've not seen the film. I've not seen it being released at all, but I know it was originally released like 2 years ago or something. But I don't know if that was internationally, and now this is for the UK. We've got this trailer. I've absolutely no clue. So if I'm able to get hold of it and watch it, I think I would. It looks pretty interesting. I can't remember Uncle Julian actually being mentioned though on the trailer. It looked like it was just the girls in the house, and then Charles comes in. But yeah, I'd be interested to see the film, but I have not seen it, so I can't pass judgment on that. But I will include the trailer in the description below. Okay, so those are my thoughts on We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson. Have you read this book? I'd love to know what you think. Leave a comment in the comments box below, or give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, entirely up to you, let you decide. And so it's on to my second pick of the year, which I've already announced, which is Kestrel for a Knave. And I'm really quite excited to read that one. So I'll be back with my thoughts on that as soon as I'm done. Alright then guys, bye!